You know how sometimes friendships feel rock solid, like nothing could ever shake them? That's what I thought about ours, me, Jake, and Sam. We'd been tight for years, practically inseparable since high school. But man, that day at the pool, it was like everything cracked open all at once. I don't even remember what started it, honestly. I just know things felt off from the moment we showed up. We usually hung out together every weekend, usually at someone's place or at the gym. But this time Jake wanted to hit the local pool. Just a casual swim and some chill time in the sun. I was into it, figured it'd be a good way to cool off and decompress. Sam was there too, though he seemed distracted right from the start, scrolling through his phone like he didn't really want to be there. For the first 20 minutes it was fine. We were splashing around, trading dumb jokes, nothing major. But I noticed Jake was quieter than usual, tighter maybe. I guess I should have picked up on that sooner, but somehow I didn't. Then mid-swim I caught Jake shooting these quick, sharp looks at Sam. At first I figured maybe Jake wanted to talk or something. But every time he tried to say something, Sam just kept fiddling with his phone, not giving him any real attention. I remember thinking, why is Jake acting so weird today? It was like he was invisible, like Sam didn't even see him there. That hit me too, actually, because I realized I wasn't paying much attention either. I was kind of caught up in my own head, maybe even taking Jake for granted without realizing it. Then things took a turn. Jake suddenly snapped. He lunged towards Sam and picked up a flutterboard. Those flat foam things you use for kicking practice, and without a word he hurled it at him. The flutterboard hit Sam right on the shoulder. Sam yelped, more surprised than hurt, but the shock was enough. At that moment, everything froze for me. I was stunned. Honestly, I didn't know what to do. I hadn't seen Jake like that before. So angry, so reckless, and it scared me. He wasn't just mad, he was feeding off that frustration in this ugly, raw way. Sam looked stunned, like he wasn't sure if it was a joke or serious. Jake didn't stick around to explain or apologize. After the throw, he just stormed out of the pool area, leaving us there. Sam rubbing his shoulder, me staring after him, heart pounding. It felt like the atmosphere shifted. The easy camaraderie we had that day evaporated in an instant. I remember catching Sam's eye, and we silently agreed that there was no way to pretend nothing had happened. The wedge was already there, but now it was impossible to ignore. Looking back, I think what really got to Jake was feeling invisible, ignored, not just by Sam but by all of us. Maybe he thought no one cared enough to notice until things exploded like that. But instead of saying something, he let it fester until it spilled out in the worst way. That moment was the breaking point. Our friendship wasn't going to be the same after that. And I swear for a while, none of us really knew how to handle the mess we just made. But if I thought Jake's departure was the end of it, I was dead wrong. What I did next set off a chain of events none of us saw coming. I shot off an email. A dumb, mean email mocking Jake's girlfriend. I guess in that moment I wanted to get back at Jake for humiliating us all, for ruining the day. Big mistake. I thought it was just a quick jab, something private, but it spiraled way out of control faster than I could have imagined. That stupid email was the spark that lit the whole revenge spiral, and there was no turning back after that. Honestly, the moment I hit send on that email, I thought I'd finally gotten a little bit of the upper hand. It felt like a small victory, a smart jab back after everything that had happened by the pool. I crafted that message with a mix of sarcasm and cutting truths, something to sting just enough to make my so-called friend think twice. I even chuckled a bit after sending it, convinced I'd caught him off guard. But man, I had no idea the storm I was about to walk straight into. It didn't take long before things spiraled. The next day at school, I was called into the principal's office. I walked in expecting maybe a warning or some mild scolding, but instead, I was met with a really serious vibe. Sitting there with the principal and a vice principal, they told me they'd received complaints, more than just from my former friend, too. Apparently, the email wasn't just some harmless joke. It was being flagged as cyberbullying. What really threw me was when a police officer came in mid-conversation. I wasn't expecting that. I mean, I wasn't some hardened criminal, just a teenager who'd made a dumb juvenile mistake. But the fact that it had escalated beyond the school, that an actual cop was now part of this, made it clear how badly things had gotten out of hand. They asked me all these questions: why I sent the email, what was my intention, if I knew the consequences of my actions. I tried to explain my side. How I felt hurt, betrayed, and honestly pretty angry after what happened at the pool. But I don't think anyone was willing to hear about my feelings. It was like my pain was totally invalidated. All they saw was the mean message I sent. The principal finally looked me in the eyes and told me I was suspended. 5 days off school, no exceptions. They said this was their way of showing this kind of behavior wouldn't be tolerated, that there were real consequences for messing with people online. I remember sitting there, stunned, the weight of their words pressing down on me. I wanted to argue to make them understand that this was about something deeper, but all I could do was swallow the lump in my throat. Walking out of that office, suspension notice in hand, I felt a mix of humiliation and anger swirling inside me. It wasn't just the suspension. It was the fact that I'd lost control of the situation completely. What I thought would be a satisfying comeback had only made things worse. Instead of a small jab, I just lit a fire that was going to keep burning. And I was right in the middle of it. But it didn't end there. Instead of backing down or feeling defeated, something inside me snapped. I realized if I wanted to really get back at him, to make sure he felt the way I did, I needed to think bigger, smarter. And so, I reached out to someone else, a friend who I knew was both loyal and a bit of a mastermind when it came to plans like this. Together we started piecing together a new, more elaborate way to hit back hard, aiming to humiliate my former friend in a way no one would forget. That's when things really started to get seriously out of control. Honestly, after the pool incident, I knew I couldn't just sit back and let things slide. It wasn't just about the hurt anymore, it was about setting things right in the only way I thought I could, getting back at him. But I wasn't about to do anything reckless or obvious. No shouting matches or messy confrontations. I wanted something cleaner, smarter. So I teamed up with Alex, who's always been the tech whiz in our group. We cooked up this plan that was part prank, part psychological chess match. The idea was to create a fake online persona. A girl who was exactly the kind of person we knew would catch his attention. Attractive, confident, and just mysterious enough to raise his curiosity. We gave her a name, a backstory, and even spent hours picking the perfect pictures from stock photos and other places online. It felt weird at first, pretending to be someone who didn't exist, but the thrill of it pushed us forward. We set up social media profiles, created fake mutual friends, and made sure she had all the right interests to seem real. Then Alex started sending the initial messages to him. Just casual chit-chat, nothing too forward. First he didn't bite. He was either too smart to fall for it or just uninterested. That irritated me more than I expected. So we stepped it up a notch. Alex, who has a knack for digital digging, managed to hack into his email account. I know it sounds extreme, but honestly at this point I was all in. What we found offered us an opportunity we couldn't pass up. We fabricated email exchanges that made it look like he was planning to leave his girlfriend. I crafted each message carefully, making sure they felt believable but still stung enough. But we weren't done. The final touch was slipping physical evidence into her locker at school. A printed screenshot of one of the fake emails. Seeing those words supposedly coming from him, right where she'd find them alone, was our way of ensuring the betrayal felt real, personal. Watching from a distance as she picked up the paper, confusion and hurt clouding her face, was a moment I knew would hit harder than any direct confrontation ever could. All the while I kept thinking about the cascade this could trigger. A public showdown, blame flying, friendships crumbling. The plan wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about taking control of a story that had spun out of my hands. And after weeks of carefully piling up these pieces and waiting for the perfect moment, that moment was finally coming. After weeks of waiting, the moment arrives when the fabricated betrayal is revealed to the girlfriend, setting the stage for a public confrontation. I'll never forget that day. The way it all came crashing down right in front of everyone, like some twisted spectacle no one could look away from. Up until then, things had been tense, sure. But I don't think any of us were prepared for the brutal public unraveling that was about to air out every wound in secret. It started out like any normal afternoon. We were all hanging out at our usual spot, that little park by the town square where everyone somehow ends up at some point. There was a crowd, nothing huge, just friends and classmates milling around, chatting, scrolling on their phones. I remember feeling this knot in my stomach, not from nerves, but from something darker, like the calm before a storm that had been brewing for too long. Then she showed up. His girlfriend. And she wasn't just mad, no. She looked like she had been holding something in her chest for far too long, and it was about to explode. I caught the moment right before she stepped into the center of the group, phone in hand, eyes blazing with a mixture of betrayal and fury. Before he could even stumble out a greeting, she shouted his name. Everyone turned. I caught his face. Shocked, confused, hoping maybe it was a mistake, maybe some ridiculous prank. But then she flipped her phone around so the whole group could see. There they were, those fabricated screenshots. Messages that painted a picture so clear and damning it felt like a punch right to the gut. The messages were cruel, too perfect in laying out his supposed cheating, the lies, the disrespect. Every word designed to wound, and wound deeply. He opened his mouth, trying to explain. My account was hacked, I swear I didn't. But the crowd was already buzzing. You could feel it in the air. Doubt, disbelief, and that unspoken desire for the truth to come out. But she wasn't listening. The tears started to fall from her eyes, but there was no softness there anymore. Just cold resolve. I can't do this anymore, she snapped. I'm done. And just like that, the breakup was public. More humiliating than any private argument could have ever been. His friends shifted uncomfortably, some trying to say something, others just watching wide-eyed. Meanwhile, he was left standing there, shattered, desperate to salvage some shred of dignity in the wreckage of his reputation. The silence that followed was worse than the shouting. It was the kind of silence filled with questions. Who did this? Why would someone go so far? And most pressingly, what comes next when trust is eroded in such a spectacular fashion? Looking back, I remember watching the pieces fall apart, knowing that the damage this night caused wasn't just a moment on a phone screen. It was real, lasting. And it wasn't just their relationship on the edge anymore. It was everything, every friendship, every bond we thought was unbreakable. That moment taught me just how far revenge can spiral out of control, and how sometimes the fallout leaves scars that go deeper than anyone expects. But the story doesn't end here. Because just as the dust began to settle on that devastating night, the bitter consequences were only starting to reveal themselves. And none of us could have guessed just how much this would change